Namaste and welcome to the second season of Future Fit Corporates. My name is Bhavana Issar and I'm the founder CEO of Caregiver Saathi. In this season, we are going global and shifting the narrative. Caregiving is not a career obstacle or something that organizations must accommodate. It's a leadership accelerator. And through candid conversations with corporate leaders, consultants, and change makers, we explore how caregiving shapes resilience, empathy, and innovation. Let's discover what it truly takes to build workplaces that don't just include caregivers, but recognize that caregiving experience is an asset. Because the future of work is not just tech, female, or inclusive, it's compassionate, it's innovative, and therefore caregiver friendly. Welcome to Future Fit Corporates. Greetings of the day. Welcome to another conversation on Future Fit Corporates. This is a conversation I have been looking forward to, and I am so excited. Will be a very meaningful conversation for many leaders, many individuals who aspire to be leaders and shape caring workplaces, as well as be meaningful leaders, not just for their teams, but perhaps for future generations to learn from. I have with me Omer Dormen, with whom I will be talking about what it means to shape Future Fit Corporates. As you are aware, Future Fit Corporates is our podcast in which we speak about shaping workplaces that are resilient and innovative. Being a resilient and innovative workplace would mean recognizing and including a very diverse workforce. What has been the journey of a global leader who is a seasoned C-suite executive with close to 40 years of leadership experience in a leading multinational? That's Omer for you, who has built a deep expertise in strategic customer relationship management, profit center operations, marketing strategy, business transformation across global markets and culturally diverse environments. Known for his ability to build high-performing teams and cultivate trust, Omer has consistently delivered outstanding results by combining collaboration, entrepreneurial spirit, and agility, even in the most demanding situations. This is not just a read from his resume. This is something that I know personally and I deeply admire. So I'm really looking forward to learn this. And now, as a senior partner at Clarendon, he's passionate about guiding ambitious leaders and organizations towards peak performance. Omer is now embracing a new chapter, which I think many of us who are hurtling towards our second innings may want to learn from. A new chapter that is defined by the mantra, master of my own time, devoting more time to family, travel, and personal growth. Delightful. Welcome, Omer.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction, Bhavna. So nice to see you again.
Yes. While I saw you from a distance when we were colleagues at Castrol, and I really looked forward to work closely with you. Unfortunately, we could not work very closely, but I do remember not just many stories that I heard from your colleagues, but also some very poignant things that you did, like your Costa Coffee moments. And I would like for you to tell our audience something that your resume doesn't say.
Thank you, Bhavna. First of all, thank you for that nice introduction once again. Actually, having worked for Castrol after and leaving it after 38 years, like all corporate people, sort of edging retirement, that question was also in my mind for months. I knew that I wanted to leave, but at the same time, I didn't know what next to do.
Yeah.
And There was a dear colleague who I had lunch with while I was sort of
Mm.
going through that phase, and he said, how would you describe yourself 1st of Jan, the next day after you leave Castrol? Because he said, one of the things that people do is, they introduce themselves as, hey, I'm Omer Dormen, I used to work for Castrol, I was the ex EMEA VP. They said, how would you describe yourself? Because
Yes.
that's going to be important as a mindset. That was a very powerful insight. And this gentleman was Mike Phillips. I don't know whether you remember Mike
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
And he worked as an external coach now. Uh,
Yes.
and that actually made me think. And one of the things that you talked about, the master of my own time, is actually it was born then, because
Oh.
I knew that I wanted to remain active.
Mm.
I didn't want to retire. I was
Mm.
62, and I didn't want to retire. I wanted to stay active. And my
Mm.
father, who is 98, he says we don't retire in this family, so he still works. So that was also another powerful coaching from my family. So then I said, okay, what does Momot or Master of My Own Time means? And that's about, as you rightly said, it's staying active, but at the same time, spending more time with the family. And I think that's going to be the topic of today, where, that was a 38 years of guilt, not spending enough time with the family. And one of the things that I also said, okay, how do I, define myself? How do I introduce myself? And I put a LinkedIn post on this, and I said, if I don't have to talk about my work, my school, the country that I'm from, how do I describe myself? And let me read it. I said, hello, I'm a passionate collaborator, driven by progress, fairness, respect, and an aspiration to be a better version of myself every day. I'm energized by teamwork, a never give up attitude, working hard and playing harder. I'm inspired by new cultures and destinations. I find joy of life in having a long, leisurely meal with loved ones, seeing a new movie, island hopping in the Aegean, watching Fenerbahce, enjoying jazz on a rainy day, and taking a long walk on a cold, dry day. Nice to meet you. So this is who I am beyond the resume that you were talking about. And I hope that it gives you an idea who I am as a person.
That's a very evocative description, Omer. I particularly like the image of someone who enjoys jazz on a rainy day. I like that picture very much.
And,
Um,
we have the same culture. We also enjoy family meals,
yes.
and with a lot of laughter, a lot of talking over each other, but then having that nice comfort and peace being around, surrounded by loved ones.
I, I was about to say, and the second thing is that, which is like the love language in certain cultures is food.
That's right.
And the expression, especially for older women, is how much have you eaten what they have cooked?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. I'd like for you to also give us an insight about how do you relate with the topic of caregivers, caregiving, caregiver Saathi, some of the ideas, some of the conversations that you and I have had.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is very personal and deeply personal, and because as you described, I was very fortunate and privileged to work for a global company at leadership roles. But I also worked in multiple geographies, and I had the pleasure of
Yes.
working in India for 5 years,
Mhm.
in Russia, in Middle East, in Europe. And apart from that, even when you're in a country in a global role, you have extensive travel with meetings and the time zones. So it's relentless. But at the same time, while you're trying to put a career and do your best to support the business, At the same time, I'm also a son, and I'm, very fortunate because I have two parents. I mean, I'm 64. I have both parents in their late 90s around me. One lives with, they've been divorced for a long time, but one lives with, unfortunately, some dementia. And the other one is incredibly active
Mm.
and quite agile, but at the same time, he's an actor. But at the same time, there are some physical constraints because of his age. So that that guilt, is always there because while I'm very fortunate because we have the home care support for both parents, there's still the emotional weight, the complexity of
Mm.
managing logistics, and as I said, the constant guilt, not being there, not being able to support them. But at the same time, you want to also continue your career and you want to live your family, you want to live your life and take care of your own family while doing
Mm.
that. So that juggling is been
Mm.
deeply emotional for me. And I just mentioned to you that the last few weeks has been a struggle because my mom was in hospital in ICU for a while. Touch wood, she's much better. But that sort of trying to manage that because I was in the UK, I was in Bodrum, so trying to arrange
Mm.
my tasks at the same time. We had holiday plans, cancel them, make sure that you're there, but at the same time you can't be there all the time. So it's a constant emotional weight and guilt
Yeah.
that you go
Yeah.
through,
Mm.
which is I'm sure I'm I'm the fortunate one because we can afford the home care, but at the same time I realize that many people don't have that luxury, that don't have that financial mean to do that. So that's a huge burden for people, an additional burden to be able to support that. And in our cultures in India and in Turkey, uh, you do take care of your families, and no
Yeah.
matter how old they are, you're there to
Yeah.
support them. Yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think it's the tension is between how much of this do you keep personal and how much of it do you bring to the workplace. Though, of course, in the recent times, uh, organizations and workplaces have encouraged you to bring your whole self and said, you know, we are willing to listen in, but there's only that much that organizations can do.
that's right.
Um, I also think that there is a big difference when it comes to gender.
Yeah,
Although you did mention that, you're a son, and I suppose there are some injunctions about being a good enough son, and who is a good enough son. And likewise, I suppose it would mean something for your colleagues, whether they're men or women. So, what I'd like for you to look back on your career and see what has been the arc of employees who've had caregiving responsibilities, and how have you seen that shift or change? Um, and what has that meant for you as a manager and a leader?
First of all, I think when you look at the organizations, and I was very fortunate to work for a group called BP. Castrol was part of BP, is part of BP. I think there were a lot of support in the last few years, with the employee assistance program, especially during COVID, with the focus on
Yes.
well-being and mental health. But caregiving is not a new thing. It's been there, for
Yes. Yes.
decades,
Forever.
and employees had to juggle that
Yes.
that career as well as, especially for probably more for women than
Yes.
for men. Uh, so I think without realizing or pinpointing that there was a caregiving issue, I think
Hmm.
companies were much more uh, prepared to allow for maternity leaves and child cover, which is equally important, don't get me wrong. But at the same
Yes.
time, in some cultures, caregiving for the elderly is equally important. Uh, so
Mm.
one of the things that, yeah, you talked about Costa Coffee. I think one of the things that, I realized early on without really, you know, talking about caregiving is that emotional support for the
Mm.
employees and being emotionally present when you work in a team and whether you're a manager, leader, or if you're one of the peers in a team. I think being there, and it's not about just business. It's about being part of a team, being providing the moral support to employees. So I think I always operated in sort of if I I don't want to mention like a framework, so it wasn't a conscious thing, but with hindsight, I'm now looking at it, it was more of a framework, but I didn't operate like that. It was probably giving flexibility and space to people. So, for example, from early days, I mean, you remember me from Middle East days, which was, God, 20 odd years ago.
Yes.
As a manager, I used to ensure that people had the space and flexibility. So if they had something to take care of, I was never a 9 to 5 guy.
Mm.
I would always support people to say, okay, if you have to go to your child's school, or if you have to take your child to the doctor, of course you need to go. I mean, family comes
Mm.
first.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
but without really thinking about the elderly.
Mm.
Maybe
Mm.
that was my negligence those days,
Mm.
because my parents 20 years ago were younger and they could
Mm.
take care of themselves. But I
Mm.
was a father, so I would emotionally can relate to that. Uh,
Mm. Mm.
and then you talked about Costa Coffee. Costa Coffee was something like that, creating the space for people to speak
Mm.
about their feelings, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just to their leaders, but across the organization. So creating that peer
Mm.
support. So one is the flexibility, then the other one is the care and the moral support, and having that peer community to talk about your feelings, whether it's work, whether it's personal. That was quite important, and I think that became quite evident during COVID, when we
Yeah.
were, stuck to our PC. And, again, I was very fortunate because I was looking after the EMEA region, which was, 120
Mm.
countries, which started like, my calls would start 7 in the morning and go
Yeah.
on till 8 in the
Yeah.
evening. And then, unfortunately, I was in Istanbul that time, and you would have the curfew from 9 p.m. onwards till 5 in the
Mm.
morning. So, which means that you're stuck at home 24/7 without, going out. But I quickly realized that it wasn't about me. It was the others were also going through that same phase. So one of the things that we used to do was, of course, there was all the emotional support, including, the employee assistance program, Headspace, all that, the digital tools. But, it had to be personal, and it has to be, coming from the top. Every Monday morning we would have a half an hour coffee chat. Now, that was a adaptation of the Costa Coffee, of course, remotely, where as a leadership team we will come together and then just talk about the weekend. What happens, the family, the lunch that they had, or the meal that they shared, or the emotional stress that they would have gone through. And this was a team which was located from the UK to Sweden to Middle East. So it was quite a diverse team, as you can imagine, and South Africa. So that was incredibly powerful, actually. I mean, people didn't realize it, but it was very powerful because the next time we came together when things opened up, it was incredible because people thought that they knew each other so well and there were big
Already.
hugs and laughter and all that. The other thing that I realized quickly on, it was so relentless that, you would start Monday, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and it will go on. I said every Friday from lunchtime onwards, we will have no mail, no phone calls, no meetings. So that's your safe space. You've, I mean, you can go out, you can think, you can plan for your next week, but it's about giving you space. And for example, I would go and see my mom and dad during that
Mm,
time,
mm,
and quickly rush back by 9 o'clock because there was the curfew for the whole weekend starting, and I
mm,
would
mm.
shop so that we can enjoy the
Yeah,
meal
yeah, yeah,
during the weekend because you
yeah.
couldn't go out. But it was about that emotional connect, giving people the space. Now, if you wanted to stay home, that's fine. But if you wanted to go and visit your parents, or if you wanted to go somewhere or take a walk, at least you had your space. So and the other thing that, I was very careful about was to have those one-on-ones. Every 2 to 3 weeks, we would have a one-to-one with my team. And then every quarter, I would have a skip level one-to-one just to, hold the pulse and understand what's happening. I thought that was really important to have that emotional connect and people to trust you to open up. And sometimes, just a simple question, how are you doing, is so important rather than tell me about your numbers. Just to, that human connection, what's on your mind, what's happening. And the other powerful thing that we also started, I think just before COVID, was this check in and check out to a
Yes,
meeting. And you would start with, how are you feeling? What's on your mind? And
yeah.
what will keep you uh, being present from this meeting. So then people
Mm,
will open up saying, like, my kid is doing this and my
mm,
parent is doing that. So that will
mm.
also create that environment, safe space for people to, speak about their emotions. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just being human, right? So it's about the right thing to do, just to check in like you do with your friends, with your family. Why should it be different for work? Of course, it's about numbers in the end, at the end of the day. But,
Yes.
numbers are delivered by people and by human beings, and you need to ensure that you have a strong team and well connected, and where they can open up quite freely, and they feel that the support system is there.
There's so many things that you've said right now, and I'd like
I'm
to
sorry about that.
to no to double click on them. The reason that I say that is one of the things that I've heard very often, and as a business HR partner as well, is a lot of times some managers would think that this emotional connect needs to be delegated to the HR team. So let's start with that. And clearly, you're saying that no, I need to own this as the manager and the leader. And you've given enough and more evidence that what you do as the manager and leader is core. What the HR team does is separate. I'd like for you to comment on that a little bit in terms of what have you observed and how have you coached managers, not just by your example, but
Yeah, yeah.
in helping people understand this is a part of being the manager.
I used to joke about it in Middle East, and maybe you remember with HR saying that HR is far too important to be left to HR managers. Uh, and I mean, the joke, it was a joke, but at the same time, there was some truth in it,
Yes,
in terms of
yes,
saying, well, I own it because people. I mean, you see many companies making these bold statements saying people are the most important assets.
yes.
And then the next thing you see, as you rightly said, people management is left to is delegated out. Or, the first crisis, they let people go.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, well, what about that value that you said, people are the most important
Mm.
assets, and, we take care
Yeah.
of people and people are the priority. So, uh, I genuinely believe that, people are the most important assets because,
Yes.
without them, you're not going to be able to deliver that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, you hold them accountable, you hold them to
Mm.
deliver to whatever we've agreed on, but they will need help. They will
Mm.
there will be ups and downs. I mean, none of us are, like robots. We come to work 9 o'clock and then deliver
Mm.
and leave 6 o'clock. So we come with emotions. Maybe you had the fight at home, or you feel guilty that because your kid has a school
Mm.
graduation or something that you're not going to be
Mm.
able to, or in my case, my daughter had dance shows that I would miss. So you always have that guilt that
Mm.
you're not going to be there, but at the same time, you're trying to move away from that guilt and try to do your best.
Yes.
But actually, because you're not a robot, that emotional, burden or weight is always there. Uh,
Yes.
Hence, how do you make sure that those people come to work being feeling supported? And
Mm.
that's not going to be done by just HR. It needs to be done by everyone. Starting
Yeah.
from, that's why I talked about, tone from the top. As leaders, you have to, be visible and genuinely, authentically, show that you care for people. Because when you set that example, and if people see that, they will step in because they will also show their support for others, for their team members as well. Now, if they don't fit that, and some people, naturally won't be able to do that,
Yeah.
and they may be reserved and they may not share ideas and or their emotions, and similarly, they won't be able to be present for their teams. What I've seen, Bhavna, is that if you create a chemistry strong enough in the team, those
Mm.
people who don't fit into that chemistry will leave.
Yeah.
It's incredible
Yeah.
because they see, well, I don't fit into this and I don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable with this, and then they
Yeah.
will leave. So it's about creating that environment where you have, people who are emotion connected. And, the best teams that I've worked in is always that.
Yeah.
It's about, and I was talking to someone last night at dinner, and I said, I still have, people calling me from India, from my
Yeah.
previous work, and saying, talking about the times that we worked together, and I said, it's never about numbers. It's never about,
Yes.
you remember how we delivered, 5.2% growth, for example. It's never that.
Yes.
It's always
Yes.
about, how we felt as a team,
Yes.
how, we enjoyed each other's company, how
Yes.
we did things together. And at the same
Yes.
time, it's about the parties. It's about the fun that we
Yes.
had. It's about the celebration. And that's about, I think that's very powerful. If
Yes.
people still remember that.
Yes.
And if I manage to create that legacy, I'm more than proud.
Yes, no, absolutely. What I was going to talk about next, and like I was saying, there are many things that I want to double click on. And the one that I want to talk about is, the first time I heard your name was when I came for the Transcon conference to Turkey. And you were absolutely in the front, uh, in the organizing team. You were not just this leader whose team was organizing that conference. I have very vivid memories of Antalya and how, every detail was taken care of. And I very vividly remember one of my colleagues. describing you to me, and I think, sorry if this embarrasses you a little bit, but he said, Omer is a very high performing, no nonsense guy. And I want you to help us take a peek in your mind about being this extremely performance oriented individual and leader, but at the same time having this really soft heart that people want to talk to you, people want to connect with you, and people want to stay in touch with you much after you're not in that role. Like you said, a lot of us are defined by the jobs and the positions of power we have, but we are connected with because of something else over
Mm.
time, right? How can managers and leaders co-hold these two seemingly opposing things?
Well, first of all, let me say something. Transcon you remember our dear friend Fikret Shen.
Omer, could you just repeat that? I lost you for a minute. Transcon conference?
Transcon in Antalya, Transcon conference in Antalya, was organized by Fikret. So I don't want to take credit for that, but of course,
Okay.
I was there, and it was
Yes.
an incredible conference. Uh, but it's very kind of them to describe me like that. But I so I mean I'm a taskmaster, so
Yes.
I like setting a high bar, because I
Yes.
love a challenge, and I said, defining myself, I love a challenge,
Yes.
and I don't like sort of uh, repetitive things. I like
Mm.
new things. I like discovering things, and that's
Mm.
why I would set up a high aspiration, which will get me up in the morning, come to
Mm.
work with huge excitement, at the same time with
Mm.
anxiety. And
Mm.
that anxiety is, how the hell do I achieve that?
Mm.
That's
Mm.
when I turned to the team, because I said, I don't have the
Mm.
answers. I know that I want to achieve this, and I don't want to achieve it for myself. I want to achieve it as a team. And
Yeah.
but how do we get there? And that's when the co-creation starts. That's when
Right.
you take people on board. And I think
Yes.
the important thing is, it's not about. That's why I keep on saying it's not about numbers. It's about what happens when you get to that number? What happens to the team? What happens to the individuals? How do they
Mm.
contribute? And what is the benefit to them? Nobody gets up in the morning to say, well, I'm going to deliver, $100 million for the company, right?
Right.
$100 million for the company could be a tagline,
Yeah.
but it's more important to say, how do you relate to that 100 million? What is it that's
Yeah.
going to happen? And one of the things that in Middle East we said, and also in India, I can talk about that, is we said we're going to put in Middle East back in the map. If you remember when I
Mm.
went to Middle East back in the day, 2004, it was like a forgotten region.
Mm.
It was doing all right, but there was huge growth potential, but
Mm.
for some reason it was never exploited. And you would remember that we had that 6 to 60
Yes.
vision, which was, we will increase our profit by 10 times.
Yes.
Now, nobody gets up for the profit, but
Yes.
we said we're going to put Middle East back in the map,
Yes.
and it's going to be back in the radar screen for Castrol, which means
Yes.
that we're going to continue getting investment, which means we're going to get talent, which means that we're going to
Yes.
export talent. We're going to, this is going to be a high focal area where you can also showcase your individual performances. And we did that. We achieved that, that target. And, I left Middle East now 15 years ago, and Middle East is still back on the map, and they're still doing great jobs. And so that's what it's about. So how do you
Yeah.
create? hyper, and then it's relentless because,
Mm.
once you set that target, once you agree on the roadmap, once you agree on the action plans, then Bhavna, I'll be on your back saying, what happened? Tell me. How can I help you? What are the things?
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I will ignore Bhavna as a person.
Yes.
I will make sure that, you have 100% of your attention to the task. To be able to do
Mm.
that, I need to connect with you emotionally to say, how do I help you to have that
Mm.
100%?
Yeah.
And how do I
Yeah.
support you? What are the things that I can support you to support your career, your development,
Mm.
your learning needs, but at the same time, your family needs. So I think it was, yeah, I mean, it's manageable, and I think it's just basic being a human, saying, well,
Yes.
I'm going to drive performance, but not at the expense of people, with people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think having that clarity helps, and knowing that, here's what I need to do, or here's what I notice if I were to kind of make a little framework out of your experience. I would say that there seems to be, to start with, some kind of clarity about who I am and what do I enjoy. That's a good starting point. For example, I enjoy a challenge. I know that this is what is important to me. I know this is what is important to myself. I'm not going to be motivated by a number. I'm going to be motivated by what it does for me and the future. The second thing that I noticed in what you said, and I'm paraphrasing, which is that whatever I do is not a flash in the pan. It is something that's solid, that's sustainable, that whether or not I'm there, Middle East is delivering and continues to deliver. And that's the legacy. The legacy is not just what happened in 2004 or 6, or, just then. So then that means thinking through in a way that is not just short term, but a combination of short term and long term. And that can be only if you build certain quality of infrastructure and a culture within people that, is passed on over time. Um, I find that very inspiring, Omer, and thank you. Thank you for unpacking that. Because what I see in this, because I have a blinkered vision and I see everything through the lens of the caregiver. I see you as, a caregiver to your team and the organization. How would you comment on that?
Well, I don't know whether that's the right definition. I mean, I'm humbled by that, but at the same time, I think it's about being, first of all, being emotionally open as a leader and
Yes,
being vulnerable, right?
yes.
Uh, so when I came to India, and you would maybe remember that 10 years ago. I was the first non-Indian to be the MD of Castrol India.
That's
Uh,
right.
and, that scared me a lot, as you can imagine.
I
I
can
was,
imagine.
going to a new culture, although I knew India, I worked with a lot of Indian colleagues. My uh, rest in peace, Naveen Kshatriya, who was an inspirational leader and a great boss and a friend. I worked for him for many years. And he was quite instrumental, by the way, in my move to India as well. And I'll tell you about that a bit later. So when I came to India, I said, what is it that I'm going to do? And one of the things in my first town hall, where I took over from my predecessor, I prepared a couple of slides, which was, first of all, to introduce myself,
Mm,
my family, my journey,
mm,
but at the same time, put a what I stand for slide,
mm,
which was very open, saying that, first of all, this is what I stand for in terms of my values,
mm,
and saying that, I'm going to be relentless, but at the same time,
mm,
I'm going to ask lots of questions, but I'm going
mm,
to be accessible 24/7.
mm,
No matter who you are, you can access me by email, by my phone, by walking to my desk. I'll be
Yeah.
there. Now, it's a 700 plus organization, so it's a huge commitment to make. But at the same
Yeah.
time, that was a message that I'm available if you
Yeah.
need me. And I'm never a big believer of hierarchies. I know that there
Yeah.
needs to be a structure, but the structure
Yeah.
is there for a reason because you need to,
Yes.
work as a team. But hierarchy is not that, and I used to say, uh, democracy doesn't apply in the company. I mean, the democracy in my mind is to hear every voice and to make sure that every
Yes.
voice is heard. But
Yes.
then somebody needs to make a decision. It's not about consensus. I
Yes.
mean, I'm going to have consensus. So I'm going to
Yes.
make sure that, I heard every voice and
Yes.
I've included you in the decision making. But,
Yes.
somebody has to take that decision. And sometimes it's going to be in your favor, sometimes it's going to be against you. But, you need to
Well said.
respect that. But, you need to make sure that you've been heard. So that was sort of I think probably even for Castro India was quite a new thing. And then,
Yeah.
during the day I would just walk across the, desk and just you know tap someone on the shoulder, say, "How are you doing today?" And
Yeah.
they would be shocked because they've never seen an MD walk up to them. And I said, tell me what you're doing, tell me what you're working on, how's life, the family, all that. Just 5 minutes, that emotional connect that people can see. And then, uh, make sure that you spend time visiting plants, visiting people in different locations, shaking hands, having that eye contact, listening to them. I thought it was very, you know, it well, it's the right thing to do, but I thought it was also very powerful because
Yeah.
people remember that.
Yeah.
And one thing which resonated with me, I mean, we when I came to India, we had some volume issues. The volumes were going down, and I
Mm.
for 3 months, I observed what was happening, and then we put a target saying we're gonna turn the volume up. Because one of the
Right.
things that I realized that, you can never focus on profit in a place like in India. Never only on profit. Of
Only.
course, profit is
Yeah.
important. But
Yeah.
when volume is going down, the first place which is going to impact is which is going to be impacted is the plant, because they see
Yeah. Yeah.
the volumes going down. That means their livelihood is going to be
Yeah.
impacted. Although the company
Yes.
may keep making profit, they say, well,
Yeah.
that's going to affect me. So that's
Yeah.
why we had that sort of constant focus on volume, volume, volume. And then I was visiting one of the plants,
Mm.
and one worker in the drum filling line calls me over saying, come. And he didn't speak any English. So with a translator, they said, you talk about volume growth, but this drum line versus last year is going down. So there's an issue. So can you look at that? So I said, thank you very much. And we went back, and there was a pricing issue.
Mm.
And we corrected that. And then
Mm.
we recognized that worker at the next town hall saying, thank you very much
Mm.
for being part of that. So imagine how that worker,
Wow.
two things. One, he knew about the vision, and he felt he was compelled to be part of that vision. But at the same time, he felt that he was recognized. And so that was a message to the organization saying, doesn't matter who you are part of
Yeah.
this team, and you need to be, I'm available. I'm open to feedback because I don't know all the answers, and we together we'll figure it out. The only
Yeah.
thing that I can do is I can show that I'm available, I'm vulnerable, because
Mm.
I make mistakes as well. But hey,
Mm.
you're allowed to make mistakes as long as it's an honest mistake, and I'm there to support you.
Yeah. No, and for sure, that particular workman also felt that he was, he had the space and the confidence that he could come up and give you that feedback. If he
Yeah.
was going to be shut down or not allowed, or he didn't have that confidence, I would think that, he would have thought many, many times. And that just goes on. And my heart smiled as you mentioned, our favorite leader, Naveen. And I have been at the back of my mind thinking about him as we are having this conversation. And I was thinking, how am I going to bring him into this conversation? Because I know that you and I have learned incredibly
Absolutely.
so much from him. And he's another example that comes to my mind about a person who, you know, loved a challenge, believed in going after the impossible, was relentless, unforgiving to himself. And, it was a challenge keeping pace with him, loved him for that. But he was able to, get something, that little extra. So I want you to talk about that, about what did you receive from him that gave you something to give forward?
He was an incredible human being. I mean, he was first of all, he was highly intelligent, highly experienced, knowledgeable,
Yes. Yes.
but at the same time, an incredible human being. I mean, when I came to India to 2015, he'd been retired for a long time.
Right.
So he'd been retired for 3 years. Uh,
Yes.
and when he heard that I was being considered for the India role, and because it's a listed company, of course,
Yes.
although Castrol recommended me as the MD, I had to go through an interview with the
Right.
remuneration committee.
Right.
So I was about to, fly out next week or next month, and I was in boardroom. My phone rings, and it's Naveen on the phone, and it says, and you know that he never said, things like, "Hi, Bhavna, how are you doing? How's the family?" He would go straight to the point. And he said,
Correct.
"Hey, Omer, take a pen and paper." I said, "Okay." He said, "I hear that you're being considered for the role. Great choice. Here's what you need to think about when you're talking to the board members." And then he gives me an hour feedback in terms of, the board directors, who the board directors are, what they've been looking for, and prepares me and coaches me for now. That's 3 4 years after he's retired. So
Yeah.
that's the care. And then when I was in India, and then I got the job, luckily. When I was in India, I think it was my first year in India, and he invites me for dinner with Pooja, his wife,
Yes.
and it was my birthday. And I didn't know that he knew. And I was on my own because my wife was here. So he invited me for dinner without saying, he said, "What are you doing on next Tuesday?" And I didn't realize it was my birthday. I said, "Yeah, well," he said, "let's have dinner." And then we go to dinner, and at this restaurant, he had a special menu printed, Omer Dormen's birthday dinner. And then he had a gift. I said, "This is incredible. This is incredible." I mean, so that's why, uh, I mean, coming back to what we discussed, we talk about how he made us feel rather than the numbers that we delivered. Uh, he was relentless. I mean, he would drive
Yeah.
me mad. I tell you, I used to love him, but he would drive me mad in terms of the questions and the details,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
third digit of the number.
Yeah.
Uh, But hey, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, next day he would call you and say, you know, how you doing? How's the family? Do you need? I mean,
Yeah.
he would balance. So I've learned so much from him in terms of
Yeah.
being a leader,
Yeah.
where it's not about, just delivering. It's about being human and being there for people.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. I mean, it's may he
Yeah.
rest in peace, and
Yeah.
I hope that he finds peace wherever he is.
Yeah, no, what an incredible legacy, Naveen Kshatriya, for those of us who have worked with him and learned from him and aspire to grow to be a fraction of who he was. Such a special person. Um, we knew that he was navigating a tough illness, but um, I remember being like experiencing a deep personal loss the day that I heard about his passing. And I know that it was not just me. And, it was so many of us who
Absolutely.
were, yeah, who were,
Many people.
yeah,
And I remember the farewell session to him. I mean,
yeah,
there were so many people joining that. And then, when my family joined me in India, he was there with Pooja, inviting us to their home, introducing us to their
yeah.
friends. And when we were finally leaving, he was the one who had the farewell at his dinner.
Wow.
Uh, I mean, he didn't have to do that. He was just he. I mean,
Yeah,
he really cared for us, and
yeah,
of course,
yeah,
we had a huge love and respect for him. But he didn't
yes,
have to do that. He was a big man, and
yeah,
so it
yeah.
was just so humbling.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there are people like you who worked directly with him. But I was two levels away at one point, and then one level away another point. But I just somehow felt that I had access, and I think while that's the legacy, and I think that it passes on, right? So the point that I wanted to make also was that you received a certain quality of care, and that kind of equips us to offer it to our team and the others as well, because it kind of nourishes us as individuals. So I would think that I'm imagining that I would think that you received that from a set of people, which also added to how you were able to offer the conviction that yes, this can work. I can be this challenging person, but I can, it can work together. I know a lot of managers who would come back and say, I can be one or the other. I can be demanding for performance. Otherwise, I'm seen as a soft, woozy person, and I don't want to be seen as a soft, woozy person.
Yeah,
So I think the two can be together. And thank you for
absolutely,
giving those examples.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can be tough, but at the same time, you can be caring, and
Yes,
you, both can go hand.
yes,
So and I've learned. I mean, this probably Naveen had a major impact and major influence on me in terms of, you know, juggling that. Maybe I was uh, not emotionally mature enough when I was in Middle East. So he had a big role to play during those. I worked with him for 7 years. He had a big influence on me, positive influence on me in terms of making me more. And he would just listen to me when I'm going about and going crazy, and say he would just listen to me calmly and then give me advice in terms of how I should behave.
I have a feeling he's listening in to us right now, and
I hope
I
so.
and totally, totally grateful for the fact that he's a part of our lives. Um, Omer, I would like for you to throw some light on being a leader for both men and women, and you would have been a leader for some women in your team, and you would have seen that change over time. One of the things that I hear very often is that caregiving is predominantly a women's preoccupation because of historical, social reasons, biological reasons as well. What would you tell other men managers and leaders and colleagues as they work with women who seem to carry the weight of caregiving a little differently?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, I mean, I don't differentiate between men and women because
Okay.
we all have different emotional uh,
Yes,
baggages, if you like.
yes,
So it comes back to, yeah, I mean, from a caregiving perspective or childcare, of course, there's
yes,
unfortunate societies, especially in our
yes,
societies,
yes,
there's more burden on the women,
yes,
and I
yes,
think that's an easy way out for men, saying, well, that's women's responsibility. Uh, as far as men is concerned, well, supposed to be at work all the time. And it's rarely the case
Yeah.
because, although that emotional baggage you're not allowed to share as men, I think men go through the same thing. And as I
Correct.
said, as a son, I went through it. I've been
Yes.
through it, and I'm still going through it. But in some societies, that's unfortunately more tilted towards women.
Yes.
And that means that you need to be extra careful when you designing policies. Now, and to be honest, Bhavna, I don't think, you know, any any company can do this alone. So
Hmm.
companies can play a major role in influencing the society, the ecosystem, and they can provide the funding, they can provide the insights. But this is about the whole society coming together, from government to NGOs, to create that ecosystem. Uh,
Thank you for
uh,
saying that.
yeah, because I was lucky enough to be part of a BP giant company, but now I'm, a partner with a small company where we don't have the means to provide that, but we can provide the insights. We can also, I like to be able to help people if they need that emotional
Yes.
support, or the ecosystem, or
Yes.
the caregiving, whether it's, I heard about concierge systems, or, I mean,
Yeah.
how do you do that as a company? You need to make sure that the companies are coming together so that that service is available, funded by companies, but managed and governed by either an NGO or government, or by health ministry. So I think there's a lot that the companies can do, but that doesn't mean that they can do it on their own.
Yeah.
Hence, there's a lot that the leaders can do of the corporations in terms of lobbying for this, and being the spokespeople for this, the importance of this topic. And again, coming back to what you said, I would not like to divide between men and women, because in the Western cultures, it doesn't matter. It's the same.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised when I was running Nordics that you both parents would have maternity and paternity equal amount, because they were expected. The father was also expected to take care of the kid, and it wasn't just on women's shoulders to do that. So I mean, that's another learning that, it needs to be equal. Now, how do we bring that to, the society in the Eastern cultures, in India, in Turkey? Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a journey that we need to be on. And it starts with, educating the leaders and the corporations and the employees to be, the leaders in this, but also influencing the society in the right positive manner.
What incredible insights, Omer. So first off, I think absolutely right. There may be a history, there may be a social expectation, but really there is no difference between men and women when it comes to performance. And in your experience, you have felt that men and women can both deliver equivalent performance and need to have a space where they are treated equally. I think that's very, very powerful. Thank you for saying that. As a leader or a manager, we need to be mindful that we are not applying the gender lens in a way to, to to miss out on some things from our
Yeah.
team members. The second thing that I find very useful and insightful is that as a large company, sometimes you have the bandwidth to be able to accommodate a few things. However, small companies may not have that. However, there is a business case for big and small companies and other players in the ecosystem, the
Yeah.
government, the NGOs, and others to come together because it helps everyone. Um, uh, I would like for you to, as we close, probably give me some advice or tips on how I could convince a CEO to invest in the employees who are caregivers, or invest in an infrastructure for something that supports the caregiver aspect of employees. How would you coach me?
Well, I mean, who am I to coach you? I mean, you've been a coach, and you're inspirational in terms of the way you manage your career and the person that you've become. But my tip to probably to CEOs or to leaders, I told you about my journey. I still struggle with guilt even
Yes.
today, because there's always something that you need to manage,
Mm,
and you always get those emotional curveballs that you need to manage.
mm,
So you need the flexibility that I mentioned and the moral
mm,
support,
mm.
because otherwise, you would burn out.
Yeah.
So that's why my tip to organizations would be, this is not a this is not an employee perk. It's not a
Mm,
nice to have. It's not like, okay, we do this because it's about attracting uh, new talent, but at the same time you see this as a perk and you don't really live this and you don't genuinely believe in this. Uh, I think it's good business. It's good leadership. I think it's one of the documents that you sent to me. I read that, the impact in Asia Pacific economy is about $250 billion. That's what they're
yes.
expecting in the next few
Yes.
years,
Yes.
because they will lose talent, because you're
Yes.
forcing people to make a decision between their career and caregiving, and we know which is going to take precedent. I mean, if you forced to make a decision, then of course
Yeah.
family comes first. So people will lose talent and organizations will
Yeah.
lose talent, and that's going to impact their
Yes.
business. So that's why it's good business as well. I mean, it's good leadership.
Yes.
It's good. It's being a nice human being.
Mm,
So uh, I would, my tip to leaders would be to lead from the front,
mm,
and genuinely believe in this,
mm.
not as a perk, but as a good business investment. But at the same time, also use the ecosystem to influence others um positively, because they can't do it on their own, and there's limited uh, availability of those support, and it needs to be a private public type of partnership, and they need to lead on, and they need to use their power, or they need to use their status to influence public sector as well, in the right way. So that would be my tip to CEOs. But I wouldn't be able to coach you, well, even if I wanted to.
Don't say that, please. Such an inspiring conversation, Omer. You've given so many insights, and there is so much that I could, like I said, double click on and have an even more deeper conversation, but perhaps for another time. I'm very, very grateful for your
No, thank you.
time, your insights, our friendship. Thank you for that. Thank you for the generosity. Really appreciate that. I also think that for somebody who has accomplished the kind that you have accomplished, lived across cultures, led teams, and have such a powerful legacy, when you say that here is what leaders should think about and do, whether it is creating gender equal workplaces or it is about thinking about caring for our teams, I think we should listen to you. Thank you.
Bhavana, thank you very much for having me, and really great conversation. So thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. I think it's highly inspirational, and good luck with the next phase in, first of all, your domestic life, in terms of
Yes.
the new move, the new
Yes.
location, and what you're
Yes.
doing with Caregiver Saathi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take
Thank you for watching this episode of Future Fit Corporates. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't let it end here. Join the Future Fit Corporates Club or the FFC Club. Explore our full dossier and discover powerful blogs from our past speakers. Let's move beyond inclusion as a buzzword. Let's make diverse experiences, especially experiences of caring for others, caregiving, a leadership strength. Together, we can truly build not just a caring world, but future fit workplaces. Until next time, take care and let's keep the conversation on.